Hey everyone. So when I checked on the recording from that conference last week, it cut out the first 3 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself and then we'll get back to the recording and the rest of the presentation. So my name is, if you haven't figured it out already, Chris Nowicki, aka Chris Wicks. You can find me on Twitter as I am Wicks. Scan the QR code. And if you're a fan of the command line, go ahead and type in MPX Chris Wicks and you can get all of my information. And this talk is on a framework to a better you in the world of productivity. And this is something I'm passionate about as I wrote it for myself. This is an area that I've struggled with and continue to struggle with. So I thought I would share it with all of you. And I'm really excited for you to learn more. And hopefully you'll be able to gain just a little bit of information from this talk that'll help motivate you, inspire you to start making changes in your life to become more productive. All right, on to the recording from last week. Bye.
Industry, and the reason why most of you are all here, it's a $4 billion industry as of 2020 between courses you can take, tools you can use. You know, you have the rise of Notion, Todoist, Tick, all of those tools. This talk is not going to go into what tools you should use. It's not going to go into what productivity process you should be using, but it's more of a journey of asking yourself some questions, doing a reset, and we're going to go through all of this today. So at the end, you can walk away with some tools similar to this morning's talk and similar to the talk with Mark to go, here's some questions I can ask myself to see where I am at. Here's how I can organize my thoughts and go, what is important to me? What should I be focusing my time on? Cool? The biggest thing is we don't want to fall into the all or nothing mindset. Who knows what the all or nothing mindset is? All right, a lot of you know what the all or nothing mindset is. So let's give an example of this. Let's say I see Jason Torres's tweet. He wakes up at 4 a.m. every morning. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know why he does this, but he does it. And a lot of people ask him, how do you do this? So the all or nothing mindset is, I'm used to waking up at 8 a.m. and tomorrow I'm gonna be like Jason Torres and I'm gonna set my alarm for 4 a.m. I'm gonna do it. And guess what happens the next morning? I snooze. I'm like, okay, I'll get up in a half hour. My wife who's sitting up the front goes, you were gonna get up, weren't you? No. And then what happens? I tell myself I'm a failure. I'm never gonna do this. I'm just gonna give up and I'm not gonna try. My point with this is as I go through the presentation, I might suggest certain methods or certain things you should do or time frames. Take that what you will. It might apply differently to you because you have a different life circumstance from me, but the same topic will still apply to you. Cool? So let's take this into consideration. There are 86,400 seconds, 1,440 minutes, and 24 hours in a day. That leaves us 168 hours a week to do all the things between work, time with our family, right? Our attention is constantly being stimulated by the world around us. Right? How many of you have trouble just maintaining your Discord notifications? I had to turn them off for all the servers, right? I mean, Discord's popping up, Twitter's popping up, all these feeds, they're distracting us, they're pulling us away. It's wanting to distract us from being productive. And a lot of us have different life circumstances. Some of us have kids, and we're shuttling kids to school, to daycare, to the sporting event, to another birthday party, maybe 3 birthday parties in one day, right? Some of us have issues with attention. I have ADHD. I struggle with attention. In fact, I wrote this talk for me because this has been my struggle my entire life is productivity and getting things done. And I still struggle till this day, up until even last night when I was finishing my slides because I was procrastinating because I was afraid of failing at my talk today. You see, our life experiences, the lens from which we view life, we can use that to define a path to the success. And that's what we're going to go through today. So let's look at some basic stats that I kind of went across the web and I said, all right, how does the average person spend our time? So this may not fit you to a T, but let's just say this is the average person. We'll go through the blue first. All right, the blue is your weekday, Monday through, let's say, Friday. You get 8 hours a day to work. Let's say the average person is getting 7 hours of sleep, 2 hours a day with family, 3 hours a day, let's say we're spending scrolling our feeds, 3 hours binging our favorite TV show. And then that leaves us in the week about 2 hours remaining to focus on something we're passionate about. Right now, obviously, when we're at work for that 8 hours, there might be certain goals you're doing at work. This talk is a broader range than that. The purple is the weekend. So let's say Saturday morning we decide to sleep in a little bit. Now, some of us don't get that opportunity because our kiddos are waking us up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning, right? For a little bit more time with family, but then we have more time to spend on social media. We have more time to watch TV, and maybe a little bit of more time on Saturday and Sunday, depending on our priorities. This gives us 12 and a half hours a week. That's it. That is not enough time. You see, how this came about for me is I was working with my coach and mentor, one of my mentors, Tessa Kriesel. If you know her, she's a wonderful human being. And she goes, okay, let's sit down and figure out what we're going to prioritize. And I looked at her and I said, I'm overwhelmed right now. Because for me, how we choose to spend our time matters. And so I was struggling with, okay, I don't know where to spend my time. I was working with Shashi in one of his cohorts. I was helping James with Deals for Devs. I was working 9, 10 hours a day. And at the end of the day, I would go down, sit with my wife for dinner. I'd be there for about an hour, 2 hours. I would completely disconnect, exactly what she talked about this morning. I would disconnect from myself, turn on Big Bang Theory because that is one of my favorite shows and it's comfortable to me, and I'll just sit on the couch, not really talking with my wife, not really connecting with her, and just frozen because I'm so exhausted from the day. And then she goes to bed, I go back into my office and I start working on things for Shashi, Deals for Devs, for all different little side projects that I'm wanting to do because I'm wanting to prove myself as, hey, I'm a developer, I'm trying to get my role as a developer, so I only have that time to work on that task. I was up till 2 in the morning, completely exhausted. Then I would wake up at the very last minute. I have a long commute to work. It's about a 300-foot walk to my office at home. Sometimes there's a little bit of traffic with the cats wanting to detour me down to feeding them breakfast, which they make sure that one of us do every morning. So that's how we got here. So a little bit of, I talked about how we each view life differently based on our past experiences. So I want to give you a little bit of a glimpse into the lens from which I view my life. See, we've all been through a spectrum of experiences that happen throughout our lifetime. For me, it has been my experience with ADHD from a very young age. At 6th grade, my parents remember getting pulled out of class and I got put in a room and I had to take these tests. Does the block go in the circle square? What does this little blotch look like to you? Or, whatever they did. I don't remember the full test. And then from there, my life changed. I got diagnosed with ADHD. My parents are trying to figure out, well, do we put them on medication? Do we not put them on medication? Let's put them on medication. We don't want them on medication, so let's go see a natural doctor. If you eat healthy and you don't eat any preservatives, then that does help. But as a 6th grader, I wanted my Doritos. I wanted my ding dongs, I wanted, I wanted all the yummy stuff. And I looked at my dad, I'm like, you're crazy. I want to eat all this stuff. So I started my journey of medication in 6th grade, and I've been off and on medication my entire life. I was embarrassed. I felt shame for having ADHD because I was different. I was allowed to go in a separate room And I had to take my tests in a separate room because I needed more time. My SATs, I took untimed. I got a special day just to do my SATs, and I was made fun of for it. I had a 2.3 GPA. I was afraid I wouldn't amount to anything. I'm the type of person my wife's a reader. She's an aspiring writer. I buy a book, I probably won't read it. I like to listen. I'm learning that I like to listen and read a book, but I'm the person where when I start reading a book and I get to page 3, I go back to page 1 because I forgot what I read in page 1, 2, or 3. It's kind of like when you're driving and this is back in the day. I remember I was moving from Michigan to California back in the day. I'm dating myself, 2005. And I get up MapQuest on, right? I'm driving on, following my maps. I got my Discman Velcroed to my dashboard. And I remember driving through Kansas going, where am I? What exit am I on? Did I miss my exit? Because if so, it's 75 miles to the next exit, and I'm gonna have to go 75 miles back just to catch my hotel. I'm easily distracted. Literally everything in front of me is a distraction. How many times does my wife have to ask me at the end of the day? I just, by nature, my phone, boom, scrolling. Not because anything exciting is happening, but it's that I gotta scroll. I gotta do something. If I'm not doing that, I'm looking at something else, and it's a distraction. I procrastinate because I'm afraid of failing. I have the all or nothing mindset. Either I do it all or I don't do any of it. And with too many options in front of me, my brain stops working. Now, fast forward, I go to college, I get a 3.8 GPA, I got a degree in network administration, network engineering, PC support, Linux administration, right? Absolutely loved it. Then I went back to school, got a degree in digital media where I learned about Linux, a little bit of web design. This is back in 2003. And I was thriving. Why? Because it was a topic that I loved. And I learned that when I'm doing what I love, when I'm doing what I'm passionate about, my productivity increases also because of ADHD hyperfocus. All right, let's be honest. Sometimes I'll be sitting at the computer for hours and my wife will come in and go, have you had water? I said, yeah, I've had like 20 ounces of coffee. It's fine. See, you can all relate. Then I land my first big corporate job, and I learned that I'm a very logical person. I love writing tech documentation, which is really weird, but why? Because it's sometimes linear. Yes, sometimes you gotta branch off, but hey, how to log into a Linux machine. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. My job had a little bit of weight to it. My job was to write technical documentation and training material for enterprise Linux systems, for the Air National Guard, for the system that now protects US airspace from 9/11 attacks happening again. And then I had to go out and train soldiers on how to maintain that equipment. There's a little bit of weight to that. I was like, oh, I'm doing things, I'm amounting to something. I was important. Now, I was weighting that importance on what I was doing, which is not what you should do, right? But for me, something clicked in that moment of, I can do something, I can amount to something, and it's directly related with what I am passionate about. And so then started my journey in tech. I mean, even as a young kid, I remember my dad and I built our DX482 computer with maybe a meg of RAM. It was awesome, it was great. That's when I fell in love with it. But my journey continued and I learned that tech is my place. I love tech and it's great. So that's a little bit of my journey. About 2 years ago, I said, you know, I want to further my education in this. I went to a boot camp for MERN and Python, and it's been a journey ever since. So that's my life experience in a nutshell. There's a lot more in there. I only have a certain amount of time, but that's my life experience. That's how I view life. So when I make decisions, I'm thinking, well, what works for my brain? What doesn't work for my brain? What motivates me? What doesn't motivate me? And even learning to recognize today how am I feeling? What's going on in my mind? What's going on in my body that is affecting me from being productive as well? So now as I start talking through this, let's think about our own life experiences. Let's think about a framework, some sort of starting a point. Again, this is not the Bible of building your own framework. This is just a starting point for you. You can pick and choose which components you want. We're going to start with self-care. And we're going to move into reflecting. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about getting all the crap out of your head. Not bad crap, just all the things you want to be doing. I want to work on this project. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do that. Here are my goals. Here's all the things. Getting it out of your head is one of the first steps you got to do. And then we'll talk about prioritizing, analyzing, and adjusting. So let's talk about self-care for a minute. Let's focus on the basics. Now, there's probably more in here that you could do for self-care, but I am looking at the basics only. And again, remember what I said at the beginning. This is not an all or nothing type of mindset. For me, my goal is to get at least 7 hours of sleep. I also don't have toddlers or kids running around the house, so that might not be a viable option for you, okay? And that's okay. So because you cannot get 7 hours of sleep does not mean you're not able to give yourself self-care. So I want to be very clear about that. If 5 hours of sleep is good for you, that's great. For me, it's 7 hours of sleep a night. Eat good food, healthy nutrients, and try and avoid alcohol. All right? I'm not saying alcohol is bad either, okay? I know there's been a lot of great drinks here and all that stuff. That's awesome. I have another reason for avoiding alcohol, but that's because I'm old and weird things happen with my stomach now. Drink enough water. This is huge. Move your body. Could be something as minimal as 10 minutes a day, or it could be, just do something. Release yourself from the pressure that you have to get things done. Think about this step right here as a reset. All right, we need to reset. If we're going, and we're not getting anywhere, and in my case, I'm working 9 hours a day, basically working 2 jobs between maintaining my current job and trying to find a new job. See, I was lucky enough to marry a licensed professional counselor. She's a mental health counselor. She's sitting in the front row. She's wonderful. And if her clients are not eating, sleeping, and drinking enough water, then she knows that they won't be in the mindset to even work on and do the work for deep healing. In fact, not sleeping enough over a period of time can cause us to go crazy, along with not eating, drinking water. Again, you can ask her how many times she asked me if I'm drinking water. It's a lot. So now that you've heard a little bit of that, let's do another one here. Think about it for a minute before you answer quickly. Is self-care a normal part of your day-to-day life? So we got about 62% roughly at the yes mark, 37% no. That's good. Some of you are doing it, and some of you are recognizing I might be doing some of it, and some of you might be recognizing I might not be doing all of it. It's all the pineapple pizza people. That's a good point, Rob. Self-care pineapple. That's right, Eddie. I love it. So let's talk about some tools that you can use through each one of these steps. What if you struggle with sleep? What if it's hard for you to sleep? What if the kids are running around, you finally get the kids to bed and you're just wired and you cannot sleep? Well, if you are tired all the time, one thing you can do is check your vitamin D levels. Go to your doctor. It's a really easy thing. When you go to your next checkup, just say, hey, can you check my vitamin D levels? Low vitamin D does cause symptoms of fatigue and depression-like symptoms. Now, it's an easy fix if they do say you have low vitamin D. Well, you ask them how much vitamin D should I be taking and go find a vitamin D supplement that they recommend and do that. But here's something really interesting. Sometimes vitamin D deficiency is accidentally misdiagnosed as depression. Let's think about that. Now, I'm not a doctor, all right? Again, I married a wonderful woman who knows a lot of information about this stuff, so she's been a huge help for some of the information in here. But how crazy is that? A lot of times doctors go, well, You got depression, let's put you on some medication, and great. But here's the thing. Then you get told you have depression, then you go on medication, and guess what? The medication doesn't work. Well, it's because you're not getting enough vitamin D. So that might be an indicator to you, even if you don't go, get your blood work, okay? Tools to help you overcome sleep issues. We have sleep aids, such as melatonin. There's valerian root, magnesium supplements, Epsom salt baths, CBD oil. Magnesium helps with our muscles and nerve tension and anxiety. Epsom salt baths, it's literally magnesium, so it just soaks in through your skin, helping you to relax. So taking magnesium daily and a pill can overall help anxiety, but taking at night can help with sleep. So there's a lot of benefits out there that you can use magnesium for. This is what I take at night, in case you want to take a screenshot. This is a magnesium supplement that I take. It helps me sleep. It's wonderful. And then there's also the Calm app. I can go back to this if people want to take a screenshot. I don't know. Yeah, there's a few. There's the Calm app. The Calm app can help you kind of wind down at the end of the night too. They got wonderful people to tell you stories with deep voices. I think even Matthew McConaughey has like a bedtime story he could tell you, and whoever hears his voice, all right, all right, all right, you know. Tools to help you eat and drink more. Well, carry protein bars with you is one, not the high sugar ones, but maybe look for low sugar, high protein. A hack that I've been doing every now and then when I remember to do it is I set an alarm on my phone and I go, remind me to eat at 3 o'clock. And then at 3 o'clock, when that goes off, remind me to eat at 5 o'clock or whatever it is that you should be eating and checking in on yourself. I have a 32-ounce water bottle at home and I try to drink 2 of those a day. It may not be the recommended, but it's something. I'm getting hydrated. And you can add flavors to your water as well. And those flavors will help. They have flavored powders, non-sugar, sugary powders, whatever you want. But drinking more water, that'll definitely help, putting some electrolytes in there. A couple apps that can help you in this area. If you're an Android user, I am so sorry. But this one is my favorite. I'm an Apple user. It's called Water Llama. Who does not want to see a llama fill up with water while you're drinking during the day? You just hit a little button, say I've had 8 ounces of water, and the llama fills up. Super cool, super fun. I think llamas are hilarious. So yeah, if apps help you out, great. Finch. Who wants a new self-care, technical, what are they called in the past? Tamagotchis? Right? So this is for mental health and physical health. It kind of gamifies the system a little bit. So as you work on yourself and you improve yourself, you're taking care of your new little friend. So try to gamify it if you need to. Now, remember, we just talked about self-care briefly. Why is that important? Because if we are not taking care of ourselves, if we're not taking care of our bodies and our minds, that's going to distract us in one way from being productive because we're going to be stressed, anxious. We're going to be procrastinating because we're fearful of something happening. So we're just doing some basics here to realign ourselves and reset ourselves to set us up better when it comes to productivity. The next step is to reflect. So while you reflect, I encourage you to write down your thoughts. Take your time to allow yourself to think. This doesn't have to be in one sitting down moment. This could be over a week, 2 weeks, a month. It's up to you. There's no defined limit here. The goal is to get insight into how you are truly doing, and I'm going to be talking about a few questions you can ask yourself here. And the last one that I think is really important, that's sometimes hard for us to do, ask your partner, ask a close friend, ask someone to give you insight, like, hey, what do you think about this topic? Like the questions I'll have coming up here in a minute. Because they may have insight into your life that you don't, but you have to be willing to receive it too. So just keep that in mind. So let's again talk about physical health. If you've done the reset, so step 1 was kind of doing a reset, taking a look at our self-care. And when you do that, most likely that highlighted certain areas in your life that maybe need to be worked on. So as you're writing down and you're reflecting, okay, well, shoot, during my reset time, during my self-care, I noticed I'm getting more sleep and I feel better. Man, drinking water, I feel more hydrated and I feel ready to get at the day. I'm less cranky. Am I eating enough? Am I exercising, moving? Fun fact, you all know what hangry is, right? Well, I've been married for 2.5 years. I got married at 40, a little bit late in life. And something I'd never known about myself until my wife Leah pointed out to me is one day she goes, "You look so sad. What is wrong?" And I'm like, "I don't know, babe." I'm like, I feel off. I feel a little weird. I get sungry. I never knew that was a thing, right? And I didn't know that was a thing until I get married. But I get really, it's actually kind of funny now because she'd be like, "Oh, you're getting really sad. You need it." And I eat, and then, I perk right on up. But it's a weird thing. I get sungry, okay? So physical health is an important part of this. And that can be highlighted. So just make sure you jot that down when you're reflecting or think about it. Or, hey, maybe use Eddie's blog recorder and talk through what you're doing and have AI tell you what to do. Not what to do, but record it down for you so you can remember, or even get pieces. All right, mental health. This is a tough one, especially after this morning. How am I feeling? Now, I put some negative ones on here, and I want to talk about some positive ones, but am I overwhelmed? Am I discouraged? Am I depressed? Am I anxious? Am I fearful? These all affect us. Like I said, when we're anxious, this morning I was sitting at the table, I was anxious. The speaker was saying something important. My wife hit me. She goes, "Pay attention." And all I could think about was this, because I was so anxious to get up here and talk. Now, you may not be all negative things. It may be I am pumped, I'm excited, I'm motivated, okay? But a lot of the times we know the positives. It's when the negatives come in that we don't really want to listen to those or pay attention to those. So I want to do a quick exercise if that's okay. And this is all anonymous. How are you feeling? I want you to take a minute or two. It's all anonymous, and we're going to get a little word cloud pop up. It could be anxious. It could be excited. It could be sad, angry. You could be exhausted after a week of conferencing all night at the water park. I feel chill. I feel tired. Look at anxious. Exhausted. Yes, I expected that one this morning. Now, as these word clouds pop up, you should recognize that some of these are yours, and you're not alone in this. See, we don't realize that our close friends, the people around us, are going through probably something similar, probably feeling something a little bit different. And you have people to talk to and people go to, and you're not alone in this. Chris is, stop it. See, Shashi, which one was yours? Mm-hmm. It's a good exercise to go through just to see we all feel things. We're human beings. We have feelings. We feel things deeply, whether they're positive or they're negative. And that has a huge impact on our productivity. Do you have any productivity roadblocks? Procrastination is a productivity roadblock. Yes, sometimes procrastination can be laziness, but a lot of the times it's because we're afraid. So then the question becomes, what are you afraid of? For me, this week, I was afraid of being up here. This is my first conference talk ever. I was nervous. Oh, thanks. Thank you. But I was afraid. I'm like, I'm going to be up in front of my peers, people that I know really well through the Twitterverse and going to that conference in January and Render, and some people that I don't know at all. What is the root of your fear? What is the root? If you are procrastinating, ask yourself, what are you afraid of? And then break that down, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. How can we tackle that so that we can get past that fear? Maybe it's fear of getting on a water slide. The negative inner dialogue. These are the things we say to ourselves in our minds that are discouraging, they're critical, and they're fearful. I'm not good enough. I'm not a good husband. I'm a failure. No one believes in me. These are just some. These are ones that I experience. I'm never going to be able to change. I'm never going to be able to break into tech as a web developer. I'm stuck in a job that I'm miserable at forever. What is your negative inner dialogue telling you? And then we got to combat that negative inner dialogue, and we got to turn it around, and we got to be positive. I am good enough. I am a good husband. I can change. I am not a failure. I will get my dream job. People do believe in me. And I want you to get in front of a mirror, and I want you to say that to yourself. Write down the negative, put in the positive, and I want you to say that to yourself. Because those negative thoughts are not true, those are lies. Those are lies that are telling yourself. That's fear that is keeping you from pursuing something that you've been wanting to pursue in your life. Productivity tools. Yes, tools can be roadblocks. As someone with ADHD, Notion is a pit of hell for me. Why? I can get a bunch of templates, and the templates will be great. But then I go, ooh, I can create a database here, and I can link it here, and I can track this. Oh, and then Brian Morrison isn't here, but if you're Brian Morrison, you can figure out how to get the API and link that to Todoist, and bring in your notes in from Todoist, and then you have that, and then it's linking to your calendar over here, and next thing you know, you spend so much time managing your tools, you don't even start, I didn't even put any, I tried, I did the whole ESLO, ESLO, he's a popular guy out there, and I paid for his create your own life framework Notion list, your life management, all in one tool, and I got stuck in it. It was awful. I'm actually at the point for me now where I stopped using any third-party apps, and I'm an Apple guy, so I'm down to Apple Notes, I'm down to reminders. Believe it or not, you could do Kanban and reminders. It's kind of interesting. And Apple Calendar. And especially with the new releases coming out, reminders will show up in your calendar, and you can click them off in there. It's going to be really cool. And I'm trying to figure out, for me, what tools am I going to insert in outside of the basics to help myself be more productive. One other shout out I use is I do use Obsidian, because for whatever reason, Apple doesn't do Markdown yet, which is like, if Apple did Markdown, that might be a game changer.
And sticky notes.
Sticky notes. My wife says sticky notes. Sticky notes, hand methods for things as well. What else is getting in the way of you not being productive? Now, I can give you a bunch. Maybe not enough time in the day. I don't even know what I'm working towards. I don't even know what my goals are. We'll get to that in a little bit. So, let me ask you for some feedback. If you feel comfortable sharing, what are some roadblocks that you have when it comes to productivity? What is keeping you from moving forward? Cleanliness around the house. Organization is huge. Yes? Trying to do too many projects at once. Chris? Finding out a good friend on Twitter gets laid off. Absolutely.
Basically not knowing what you don't know.
That is a huge one. Not knowing what you don't need to know. Back here.
Having goals that are too large, so you feel like you're not making any progress towards them.
having goals that are too large. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit.
Not knowing where to start.
Not knowing where to start.
Similar vein, analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis. Too many options in front of you. I don't know what to do.
I think the biggest one for me is lack of guided mentorship.
Lack of mentorship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do, and if there would have been a mentor, they would have been able to guide you better.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard?
Lack of information.
Lack of information. Eddie?
Like seeing someone else do something online successfully, and then like just being overwhelmed with that's so awesome, but then like not like consciously thinking, well, they did this over like maybe multiple years or like they worked towards it, but like not seeing that work, so you kind of like, why don't I have that? But maybe years of work.
Imposter syndrome.
Right.
Absolutely. Eddie just said, if you didn't hear him, watching other people succeed online and you trying to pursue your own side project or whatever it is and going, man, I'm not going to be able to do that. No, I'm nervous. Anyone else? Abby.
Need for novelty. So doing something a little bit every day gets real boring real quick.
Need for novelty. The same thing, repetitiveness every day. Yes, ma'am.
Just like being overwhelmed with family responsibilities and struggling with creating those routines that can allow you to sit down and do the work and close out the external responsibilities and then just focus on the code.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you got kids, you got family responsibilities, that's something that changes every day. Schedules change every day. It's hard to find a common time to just sit down and do one thing. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning. That's a life experience for a lot of you in this room. Different from mine, but it's still a valid life experience. The last one that I want to talk about as far as in the reflect area is what inspires you. For me, using community and people with common struggles to talk with one another inspires growth. How many of you have a community you can connect with outside of here in the room? That's about a little bit, half of you, some of you. Having a community of individuals that have a common interest is helpful. I'm a part of an online community called virtualcoffee.io. We meet twice a week. It's a community of over 1,000 developers all over the world. And we meet twice a week over Zoom, and they have an introduction, breakout into rooms, and you have an introductory question, and then it's an open floor to people to talk about, and they have a backup topic for when no one knows what to talk about. And it's developing community with a lot of people. So I'd encourage you to find a community that you can connect with, if that's a way that inspires you. Now, some of you may be introverted, and again, remember what I said at the beginning. If it doesn't work for you, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you can't be productive. It just means, maybe communities aren't your thing, and that's okay. The two other areas that I'm going to mention but not go into because those could be individual talks for weeks on end in itself. Take a look into the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram. See what your personality type is. What enrages you in your personality type? What motivates you in your personality type? That can play a huge role. As an example, my wife Leah, competition decreases her productivity because it's just too much pressure for her. There's some people that are very competitive, and that motivates them to keep on going. And there's some people that they get in that competition space, and what happens? They shut down. Like, too much pressure, not going to do it. But what does help her is being around encouraging people motivates her to keep on going. And I think this even goes back to plugging in what we learned this week from Mark. Be the kind of person that people want to work with. Be the kind of person that people want to be around, right? Step 3, brain dump. This is the process of transferring large amounts of information. Most of you should be, or not should be, that's wrong terminology, but most of you are probably aware what a brain dump is. But literally, it's an unformatted, unscripted, get it from your head on paper, write it on paper, type it out, do whatever it is that you need to do. And there's no structure for what this looks like. It could be, I want to create more connections. I want to work on this project. I have the side app that I want to be doing. I want to be spending more time with my family. I want to be spending more time with my kids and my wife. I want to be, just get it out. As you think about something, I would even encourage some of you, you can get a little notebook during the day, and as you think of something, just write it down. You know, take a picture of it, put it in whatever note system you have. It's quick. It's not like the reflect portion we talked about, where in reflection we're asking ourselves questions and really thinking through those questions and digging into how are we doing. But we can quickly jot down and record our thoughts, ideas, knowledge, and even tasks. Sometimes at the beginning of the day, you could go, all right, what do I need to get done today? List them all down. Now, choose the top 3 out of those that you think are the top 3 and do those first thing. And then if you have time for everything else, what are the 3 things that you can get done today? Right? That's a method of brain dumping as well. And then the final step, we have analyze, prioritize, and adjust. So next step is we've done some, self-care. We've done some reflecting. We did a brain dump. Now we need to take a look at that. And this is one area where I can't tell you what is important to you and what is not important to you, how to prioritize this one thing over another. There's a few structures around that in our framework that we can talk about, but we're going to look through, what do you spend your time on in the week? So you can go, as a part of your brain dump and as a part of your reflect, you could go, all right, the scary thing on the phone, any of you ever used the time tracker on your phone? And at the end of the day, it says, you spent this much time on YouTube, this much time on Instagram, this much time on, I had to get TikTok off my phone, y'all. That thing's a pit of hilarious stuff. But we can analyze all this, and we can really see, what are we putting our time towards? What sticks out the most to you? Because only you know what is important to you. I can't tell you that. And that's why the productivity industry is $4 billion, because people are trying to capitalize off of telling Eddie, you should do this one way because it's going to make your life better. But it may not work for him, but it may work for Shashi, right? I think Mark, I had to add this in because I thought it was really important. I want to go back to what he said. In order to do what matters, you need to know what is important to you. That sums it up right there. When he said that 2 days ago on Tuesday, I don't know what day we are. When he said it on Tuesday, I was like, oh, do I even know? Because again, I'm giving this presentation to you, but I'm also giving this presentation to myself right now because I'm struggling through productivity. What is important to me? And so I had to go through this whole process of what is important to me so that I can know myself. And a part of knowing yourself is going through those beginning steps. Let's do a little reset and self-care. Let's reflect a little bit. Let's get in touch with ourselves. Let's get in touch with our minds and our bodies and go, how am I doing? Because if we don't know how we are doing, how are we going to even be able to recognize what's important to us? So when we prioritize, here's how we choose what to prioritize. Your physical, mental health should come first. And here's what I mean by this. I do not mean this in a selfish way. I don't mean forget your family, forget your friends, forget your loved ones. You come first. Yeah. No. If we are not physically healthy and we are not mentally healthy, what do we have to give to our loved ones? And if we're not investing in those relationships with our loved ones, that's going to impact our mood. That's going to impact our well-being, ultimately impacting our productivity. Make sure you put time aside for your family, friends, and loved ones. And then everything else comes after that. Because we're not in close relationship with people, if we're not taking care of our minds and our bodies, then everything else is going to fall off the plate. We're going to be scrambling and we're going to be drowning. That's where I was. So what does it look like to set small, reasonable goals? All right, someone brought this up earlier. My goals are too big. Well, I'm going to give you an example. My goal, wake up at 4 a.m. like Jason Torres. So week 1, I'm going to do this. I wake up at 8 a.m. normally. I'm going to set my alarm for 4 a.m. No. That is not a small, reasonable goal. All right? But here's what may be a small, reasonable goal. Week 1, I'm going to set my alarm for 7:30. And I'm going to get used to that. I'm not going to rush it. You know, how many of you know the book Atomic Habits? Some of you, yes sir, I'll have a book recommendation at the end. It's that 1%, right? For those of you who know it, it's that 1% each day, or each week in this case. Week 2, 7 a.m., all right, we're getting there. Week 4, but let's say you're someone who gets to week 4 and it's 6 a.m. and you're like, hell no, I'm not getting up any earlier in this is nuts. Great, that's okay. You had a goal to go for 4 a.m., but you only made it to 6. Are you a failure? No, because you're learning what works for yourself. You're learning that this time is what works for me. 4 o'clock works for Jason. Sometimes he wakes up at 5. I've seen it. He slacks off a little bit. He says, I'm going to sleep in. I can't do it today. But that works for him, and that's good. Because Jason, that's the time when he can find time to be quiet before his family wakes up. And before he has to go in, because him and I, again, surround yourself with people that are in similar places. He's trying to get a job in tech right now too. So he finds time in the morning to get time away from his family to do that. And then he goes off and does work during the day, does family stuff with his kids, and tries to find little nuggets of time throughout the day. But that's the sweet spot for him. And I'm sure he had his own process for figuring that out. So when we're looking at goals, we need to take a step back and break it down so that you're not committing to doing it all at once and then giving up. Because most of the time when you do the all or nothing mindset, you will give up. I can't tell you, again, I know I talk about my wife every now and then here, but she's wonderful. Keeps me in check. Also helps that she's a therapist, so it's a plus for me. But you know, she'll say, why don't you set your alarm for 6:45? Because I've had a goal to get up just at 6 o'clock. And 7:45 rolls around, she's like, you didn't get out of bed, did you? I'm like, nope, I'm too cozy, I don't want to do it. And you know why I didn't do it? Because I was procrastinating getting up. And so what do? I just lay there. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. And last minute, I get out and do what I have to do. Or I stay up late. They call it like procrastination sleep or something like that. Sleep revenge or procrastination revenge.
I'll find it.
Find it and let me know. So here are just some interesting facts that I found. According to a deputy survey, 9 to 11 a.m. is the most productive time block for people, while 3 to 5 p.m. is the least productive. However, other studies have found that peak productivity can occur within the first few hours after waking up or around lunchtime. Now, here's the weird thing, and this is part of their study. Again, this is from the deputy survey. Some say the most productive time of day is 10:26 a.m. I find that oddly very specific. And the least productive moment of the day is 2:55 p.m. Kind of interesting. So at 10:26, set your alarms, y'all, because that's when, according to the studies, you are just going to be at your peak prime of the day. But the goal of this is, yes, I'm talking a little bit about time here and what works and may not work for you, but I'm using this as an example, an easy example of how to break down some tasks. Now let's put this in a professional mindset. If you have trouble breaking down tasks, I hope, and I know it's not easy enough, and I know sometimes this isn't the case, but I know for my employees, I try to be the person where they can come to me and go, hey, I feel overwhelmed. How can I break this down? And I give them their priorities. I help them break it down a little bit, give them some smaller deadlines. There you go. Are you trying to write that blog post? Are you trying to build that SaaS app? Are you, like me, trying to find a job in tech? You know, I apply for 20 jobs. I get 20 denials, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. Or maybe I set up a goal to just apply for one job a week. At least one a week, that's my goal. And then if I do that, okay.
It's revenge bedtime procrastination.
Revenge bedtime procrastination. I love it. Yes, it's a real thing. I think I do that more often than I like to admit.
The parents do that.
Oh, absolutely. Kids go to bed and it's a lot with parents. And the last step in this is kind of it's a process in this whole thing. It's the adjust. Over time, life happens. Your life could change daily. Your life could change monthly, yearly. Life events happen that are negative. Life events happen that are positive. And we have to learn how to adjust with that. So what do you think we do when we adjust? Go back and give yourself a reset. Do some basics. All right, got my self-care. Cool. I'm doing something. Maybe not everything in the self-care, but I'm doing a few things to care for myself. Okay, my mental health, here's how I'm feeling. Okay, am I sleeping? Here's all the things I need to be doing. Cool. All right, now let me write down what's going on in my life. Let's reflect about what changed and then start to go from there. And then you can go through this whole process. The process, again, is supposed to be iterative. You can go through, and it's always changing, and that's how we adjust through some of that. So I did this for myself. I want to show you what this looks like for me real quick, the framework in action. Here's what stuck out for me when I did this. Self-care. For me, the things that I was neglecting was my faith and my spirituality, my physical health, and my mental health. So I said, you know what? This is going to be one part of my framework. This is what I'm going to be focusing on. Get a dev job. This is my dream. This is what I'm trying to go towards. This is what I'm trying to pursue right now. Everything that I'm doing outside of these things on the left and my day job, which you notice is not on there because I do what I got to do. I get my work done. I meet my expectations. Cool. Then over here, I have a lot of opportunities and things that I've been working on. Shashi Lowe, senior software engineer at Microsoft, is so generous with the community. He started a cohort for people trying to break into tech, and we're building an app together with a bunch of other people. Some are in this room. Jason, Richard. Richard was working on this app with us, and the goal is for people to get off working the app and find a job. And he got his first job as a technical writer intern for AppWrite. Like, that's awesome, right? And so I want to invest in this, not because I believe by doing this it will land me a job, but the opportunity might present itself when that happens. Deals for devs. How many of you know James Quick in this room? Dealsfordevs.com, all right? Him and I started work. He worked on this. He did this himself for Black Friday. And I approached him at that conference in January. I said, hey, can I help you out with something? I want to work on a non-side project for me, something I don't want to go to frontendmentor.io, pick a Figma design and learn how to make that, turn that into a full stack app. I did that for their Markdown editor. It was a ton of fun, made it full stack, made my own Markdown great. But I wanted to work on something that people were using. So this is something that I want to invest my time in. I helped him out a ton with that. We're continuing to grow that app. And it's up and running today if you all want to check it out. Just deals for devs, everything from conferences to products, stuff like that. Virtualcoffee.io, that's my community aspect for me. Community is really important for me. Although I've learned that I recharge by being by myself, community is so important to me. And so I work from home, so virtual coffee I make a priority. I set time aside during the week to go to the 2 meetups that we have. If you're not a part of a community, go to virtualcoffee.io. You can go and sign up. I think there's a place in there to say if someone referred you, put my name, Chris Nowicki, and I'll make sure that you all get added into the community. Cool? Because I want you to feel like you have a place that you belong, that you can talk through some of your struggles and what you're going through. And then network. Now, real quick, I got 2 minutes. Here's what my time looked like before. You can see that my sleep suffered. 5 hours a night typically was my sleep. And then when I adjusted my priorities, I said, all right, I'm going to increase my sleep, make sure I keep my family time. I'm going to decrease social media, decrease TV. And I'm gonna and then everything else to that right is where I put in this piece right here. Here's what this looks like broken down. Before, I had 19 and a half hours a week towards my goals with minimal sleep. But after I adjusted, now I really got to work hard at this second one. I got to put blocks on my phone, and I have not done that yet. But I got to do all these things, but I could get 25 hours towards my goals outside of work, making sure I prioritize my health and family to go towards all of the things that I want to be pursuing in my life while maintaining my sleep. So what are the areas of your life that you can change to increase productivity? Remember, there are 86,400 seconds, 1,440 minutes, and 24 hours in a day, giving you 168 hours a week to be productive. How we choose to spend our time matters. Hopefully this has been really helpful to you. Love to talk with you after you have any questions. Some book recommendations. If you have negative inner dialogue, John Acuff's Soundtracks is really great. Deep Work by Cal Newport, Atomic Habits, helps you break down your goals into achievable goals. And the digital minimalism, for people like me with our distraction, how to get rid of that. That's my talk.